Welcome to Doyle Spillane Real Estate. We've been at home on the Northern Beaches for the last 40 years. We're a boutique independent agency with a clear focus on achieving the best possible outcome for our clients every single time.
Welcome back. G'day, Matt. How are you? Back for our, I don't know, 4th, 5th, 6th podcast. Didn't think we'd make it past our first one, but we're back. So
we're not debutantes anymore.
Middle of winter, so it's a little bit chilly outside, but you still got a good tan going on. Bali, nice. Had a bit of a break, couple of days.
Yeah, but it's a couple of weeks ago now.
Yeah,
And
nice.
well and truly back into it now, Joe.
Yeah, awesome, lovely.
And I actually flew out. I had my open houses on the Saturday. I flew out Saturday night. I flew back in Saturday morning of the following week so I could do my open
Do your
houses.
open houses. That's commitment for
Now
you.
we were going into 2 auctions that day. So I was away, but I was on the phone for most of the trip. And we managed to sell one prior to me getting back on the Friday. But on the Saturday, we had the one in Daisy Street, that one from that client there.
Yeah.
So it was good. So my wife was like, you're on the phone a lot. Are you relaxing? I said, I'm actually happy to be doing deals and happy to be talking to people. So it's totally fine. I actually find it relaxing.
I think it's like that. And I think people will, outside of the industry, underestimate, the work that you guys, especially sales agents, do. You never really, clock off. But much the same, like I find that even on the weekends when I'm at home,
Yes.
it's sort of like, unless I'm sort of doing something, it's really hard for me to sort of function. I don't know. It's like you can't function and even trying to relax. And I think that's how we sort of just in our DNA.
It's how we roll.
Right. Yeah.
Like I'm used to it. Like I've worked 6 days a week for a long time. And on Sunday, it is a day of rest. But if there's a deal to be done, if there's a client to be spoken to, if there's a property to be shown, because that's the only available time, we will do it.
Yeah.
And when I'm away, I don't, the only time I get a real break is probably between that Christmas and New Year.
Yeah.
And that's when
Everybody.
it's kind of accepted that solicitors are off, people are away with their family, and generally you're not getting many inquiries. But when you're away, like sometimes if you're in Europe over, the winter, and you've got 5 or 6 listings, you're on the phone, you're always communicating. We've got a great support team here, but you still got to be present. But I don't mind it. It's just something I've always done. It's something I'm used to. And fortunately, my wife, who's been with me for 28 years, that's all she's known.
Yeah.
So it's not like
And the kids growing up,
the kids.
yeah, that's what they know. But it's good. And look, we are like that. But the beauty of us and what we do, and we have our very special lady Petra, who's in our HR department, who assists us with. We had team training last week.
That's great.
And talking about well-being and just we don't expect that of our team, but us, we just operate like that, and especially in property management, pretty much I'm the same. The team sort of clock off, but we're available after hours for emergencies and things like that. So I think that's what we sort of give back to our team as well, allowing them to sort of relax and we do a little bit of the heavy lifting, but sometimes it is what it is, and it just comes with the territory.
It's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of people, when they're thinking of going into small business or going into a business or running a business, they talk about job and freedom and being able to run their own hours and things like that. What they don't realize is when you are in a small business, you're the one that's got to be there to do the work. There is less time off. There's more time focused on your team and on your clients and on everything that you do. But it's something that you wouldn't do it unless you enjoyed it. So we love it.
Look, we do, and then you're exactly right. And hopefully in the next couple of months we'll have some people that have small businesses, but I see it a lot in our industry where potentially people will look at it and go, I could be doing this for myself and making so much more money or whatever it may be. But until you get there, there is rewards, but they're a long time coming. And there's a lot of groundwork that you have to do in the meantime. So I think it's not for everyone. And some people are just happy to be sort of, be employed, get a good wage, whatever it may be, and be happy in their job. And others sort of, fall into it a little bit like we did. But then once you're there, you work it all out, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
we work it out on the run. And I guess there has been a little bit of, commentary about the new taxes, and small businesses been up in arms on that. And I guess it's because a lot of the people that start those small businesses, they spend a lot of time working as employees and paying their tax, saving, scraping, and then they decide to start a business or buy into a business like we were fortunate to do and make so many sacrifices. So on the exit, they want to know that they've done well, but I've never really looked at it that way. It's just been...
Just do it, yeah.
We just do it. We just get up and do it, and we're very much in the moment type people.
Pretty much,
aren't we?
pretty much. But we're trying to get better.
Yeah.
We're working on the business and stuff like
absolutely.
that. But
Plenty of improvement.
We'll get there one day. But look,
maybe we'll never. Maybe it'll be a never-ending thing.
That's all right. But look, I'm like you, much the same as you. When you're at away and you're speaking to people, you're happy, and I'm a little bit the same. You know, like I always, if there's calm or there's no sort of phone calls coming through or emails coming through, you know, I think sometimes I look at my phone and I'll say to my wife, is our internet down? Like, why aren't I getting emails? You know, why is no one ringing me?
Why is no one complaining about something?
So I'm like, you know, you're wired to think like that all the time. So
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I'm stressed sometimes when my phone's ringing a lot because you've got to fit everything in and make sure that you've got all your management right with all your time management, making sure you're giving everyone the correct information at the right time. And when it stops ringing, you freak out because you're going, why is no one ringing?
Yeah, well, I think salespeople are that way. I always laugh, and I always say about some of our boys downstairs or salespeople is that when they're busy, they're harassed, you know, they're running around, they haven't got time for anything. And then when they're not busy, or not busy in the sense that they're making sales, they're still the same because why am I selling stuff? You know,
it's like a cycle of continual stress. So
pretty much,
what you were saying with what Petra's introduced to us is about how to manage that stress, well-being. You know, we talk about things like meditation. We like to get moving, get our bodies moving, and do our little sports or whatever makes us tick. And bringing that as a topical thing is really good. And a lot of our guys are doing this stuff now.
No, which is good. I was just saying this morning that, you know, yesterday I didn't train because we watched the soccer. But all day I felt it, you know, even though I still got up early, I just didn't. But this morning, you know, I got up early, trained, and and you just feel, you know, alive, sort of important to keep moving. So this month we were going to talk, there's been a lot of commentary in the media. Anyone you talk to at the moment is talking about the market, especially the sales market.
Yes.
You know, I just wanted to get your sort of view on what's happening.
What's really
you know, market snapshot.
Yes.
Where you see the market sort of, you know, moving forward. And you know, any sort of good results that you've had or not so good. You know, what do you see on the ground? Like, I guess, you know, the media. I've always found over the years that the media is always a month or two behind what's actually happening. By the time they report on it, the market's moved on.
We're seeing it because we're day to day in touch with it. So thank you for that, Joe. I think the market at the moment is slower than it has been for a while. I think what's happened with the interest rates, the war, the budget, I think it's a combination of all of those things that's created a little bit of a lack of confidence. So what that means is that buyers are a little bit nervous. When the market's going up at 10% per annum, they're more likely to compromise on what they want, and they're nervous because they've probably missed out on a couple of properties at auction or been outbid by others. And so they make quicker decisions. At the moment, there's a little bit of nervousness. Will interest rates go up more? Will the market go down more? So should I buy now or should I wait? So that's happening a little bit. So what that means is it hasn't really culminated in prices coming down terribly, but they've probably dropped since the peak in January 26. When interest rates started to come down, they'll go up after that. They peaked then, and it's probably dropped, I'd say, 5%.
Okay.
So it's not significant. And I've been working on the beaches for coming up to 30 years now. So I've been through different market cycles.
Good one to get a handle on what's going on, definitely.
Yeah. What I do find, though, on the northern beaches, and it's been the same even in the GFC in 2008. We don't find that a lot of people on the Northern Beaches aren't forced to sell. So there's not that many forced sales. So people that are coming onto the market at the moment only do so if they do have a compelling reason, and the rest just do nothing. So what it does is it creates a shortage of supply. So what the shortage of supply does, it means that there's less available properties for sale. Auction volume numbers are down about 15%. Property numbers for sale are down about 15%. So any buyers that are looking to buy, there's less choice.
Yeah.
That's keeping a little bit of a floor under it from it dropping terribly. And I've found that that's always been the case on the Northern Beaches traditionally. So the market probably dropped 5%. Will it drop more? I don't think so. I think maybe coming into the spring market, more people will put their properties on the market if they've got a compelling reason to sell. But I think there's buyers out there now that are thinking there's some relatively good value and I'm going to start looking.
Yeah.
And it still creates a little bit of that. If you market the property well and it's priced well, you can still have a competitive auction. The one that I was talking about when I came back from overseas, and I had an auction on the Saturday, we had 3 people registered at that auction, and it went for a little bit above the guide, but it wasn't going 10% above the guides like it was happening in the good market, but it certainly wasn't going below the guide. So overall, the market is a little bit lower than what it was. It's a little bit harder. Volumes are down. People are a little bit less confident, but the Northern Beaches market is always quite resilient, and a shortage of supply and always good demand for people that want lifestyle. Like we've got a blessed lifestyle here.
Yeah.
The beaches are stunning. For young families, there's sporting, there's there's anything that you want to do here. We're not that far from the city.
Yeah.
We're a little sort of ecosystem here. We've got everything around us.
Yeah.
We're fortunate that we live and we work very close, so we don't go far. But the Northern Beaches still is a high demand lifestyle location. So I think moving forward, my predictions are that the market will continue to be stable. It may drop a little bit more, but it's really hard to know when the bottom of the market is.
Yeah.
So what I'd encourage buyers to do, if they're actively looking to buy, they're probably finding there's not much stock on the market, and they're probably thinking, I've heard the market's really gone down a lot, but on the Northern Beach, it hasn't seemed to go down that much.
Yeah.
And the reason is because there's not much choice.
Yeah.
If you're a buyer, you've got to find a property that you like that corresponds with the seller having to sell for you to get that bargain.
Yeah,
It doesn't really exist.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to ask you. Like we say, when people say it's slowed down, what does slow down actually mean? Does it mean that you're not getting numbers through, that they're not making as many sales? Like what? And you've touched on a little bit, like not stock coming on.
Yeah.
But what are your numbers like? Are there still people coming to your open houses?
So with buyers, we would call it a slow market if we're doing open for inspections and there's less than 5 groups coming through.
Okay.
Yep. And at the moment, it's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
But the interesting part is that's normally a result of masses of stock on the market. But at the moment, it's slow because buyers are not confident.
Yeah.
So they're sitting on the fences a little bit. But vendors, it's also slow on that side, where supply being low because vendors, unless they've got a compelling reason to sell, they're not putting their properties on the market. So both sides are slow. Normally when supply comes down, prices go up, but supplies come down and demands come down. Prices have dropped a little bit, supplies dropped, volumes dropped. That's what people aren't talking about. People are focused on, has it dropped 5%, 10%, 15%? People are making broad predictions.
I saw something saying it's gone down 300,000 on the Northern Beaches.
Well, look, there would be situations where a property was they thought it was going to go for 3.3 and it went for 3, and they'll document that, and it makes a good story.
Yeah, and that's.
But then there's others that we thought were going to go for 3, and we had 2 people that liked it, and it went for 3 and a little bit.
Yeah.
So they balance each other out, and that's where we get the 5%.
Yeah.
So what I'd say for buyers, if you see something that you like, it's a good time to buy.
Yeah.
But it's hard for them because they're a bit nervous,
Yeah.
especially the first home buyers. They're a bit nervous, and there's not much for them to choose.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that because I guess the way the government has made it out, they're trying to help the first home buyer,
Yeah.
but you're saying that they're still nervous.
They are nervous, and I understand what they're trying to do, helping the first home buyers by taking more investors out of the buying pool.
Yeah.
Does make sense when you look at it that way. What I feel a little bit sorry for are the first home buyers that bought a year ago, 6 months ago, or even up to January this year when the market was quite robust and strong. And let's say they bought a property for $1 million. They used the 5% government scheme.
Yeah.
So they had a mortgage of, call it $950, which is great. They got into the market, and with the market coming down 5%, their property is probably worth a little bit less than what their loan is. Yeah. So those first home buyers haven't been helped, but the new first home buyers coming into the market will probably have a little bit less competition from investors. And we are noticing that.
Yeah.
Are you noticing in the rental department that you're getting less referrals from the sales side of investor clients?
Yeah, without a doubt. And, like a couple of months ago, or even towards the start of this year, I was sort of commenting saying that, there's a lot more investors that are in the market at the moment, and we'll get in a lot more leads. And I don't know, if it's a combination of obviously the new sort of laws with regards to negative gearing and capital gains tax, but also they've changed the super, being able to purchase in your super fund now.
Yeah, that is another.
Being able to, borrow money, to purchase in your super fund.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't know if that sort of will be detrimental to the market.
Yeah, because quite a few of our clients did buy in their super.
Yeah, they did, and I never sort of understood it that well, but I made some inquiries recently, and I understand. Yeah, it makes sense to do that. Obviously, anyone that's had super for an extended period of time, a lot goes out to fees and stuff like that. So you sort of think, really?
Yeah, it helps you take control of your super.
Well, that's it. Yeah, and ultimately, moving forward, I think anyone sort of in our sort of age and younger is not really looking at a pension down the track. That's the reality. So you need to sort of try and set yourself up. But it's been funny. And I was going to say, back to the first home buyers, there's been a lot of commentary about negative equity. So that's becoming a big thing. And I don't know if it's not so much maybe here on the Northern Beach.
Not so much west, because things aren't dropping so much here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have heard out west where people using that same scenario, they purchased for $1 million. They borrowed most of it, and now they've got a property worth maybe $850 and a loan worth $950. Now, if they hold them long term, they'll be okay. But some people can't. Yeah. They lose their job. Interest rates are going up. Yeah. Cost of living pressures. There's all of those things. And most people, when they're buying their first home, it's stressful. Yeah. There's pressure, and they lose their job, or something happens. Yeah. And I guess when small businesses aren't confident, they're not employing, or they're cutting back on staff, or they're getting rid of people that they don't, maybe that are surplus. Yeah. And that might be a first home buyer that's bought a property that's now looking for another job as well. So there's a whole array of things, and it all comes down to confidence. And that's what's happening at the moment. People aren't confident with what's going on. They're a bit nervous, and I think we've got to, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with interest rates, what happens with employment and unemployment, what happens with, retail spending, things like that in the next quarter. It's going to be quite interesting to see how that all pans out. Yeah. But from our perspective, I think, the sales market will be okay. It'll just be a little bit slower, but I'm curious to see what changes in the spring market. So when that happens, normally, traditionally, a lot more stock hits the market. And if buyer demand doesn't increase, the market will go down more.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I've seen a lot of people, even in our industry now, are really pushing the upsizing or,
Yeah.
like,
It's a good time
and I
to
think
do
it
that.
happened when the market was really strong.
Yeah.
People were looking at that going, my changeover is going to be 100,000, say, call it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll spend 100,000 on the home that I've got and sort of stay here sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that is, I've heard people
Yeah.
sort of saying this is what people should be doing as
Yeah.
opposed to.
Well, your own home, your principal place of residence is free of tax, as we know. So a lot of people will either put money into that to boost its value and be comfortable to stay, and then others might upsize in a down market. Your changeover is lower when you do that in this market. So there are some people doing it, but because there's a lack of confidence, even that's not happening.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What's the steps around that, just for people sort of listening in, because that I've always been in real estate. I've always seen that as a really difficult thing to line up. Like you're selling, and then based on what you sell, you got to go out and buy. But if you're saying there's not enough stock out there, then what happens then?
So people just sit, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But generally, what normally happens in a normal balanced market, say, which we're not quite there. We're it's a little bit of a buyer's market at the moment, or a slower market. But what people are doing, they're getting their property valued, and let's say it's worth $2 million, and then they're going and looking at things that are maybe worth $3 million. Yep. And their property may have been worth 2.2. Now it's worth 2. And the one that they were looking at was worth 3.3, and now it's 3. So they are looking at it going, maybe it's a good time to upsize and do it now, rather than in a market that's going up. It's easy to do it. So we're saying to people to certainly look at that. But people just, it's a big step.
But how do they do that? Do they sell first?
Well, some sell first.
What would you say? Like, that's reality. Because I always look at that and I think, because interestingly enough, I've had a number of calls from people that are selling.
Yeah.
And then saying, oh, but we want to rent something now for 6 or 12 months.
They think that,
which again is then going to put another massive stress on the rental market, So I'm thinking, what are the options around this? If you went off and sold first, which I think we would always recommend someone do, because buying first, can you just take us through that?
So you got a couple of options. The first option is you sell first, so you know how much money you've got, and then you buy. But you do that after your research. So you look at yours, it's worth 2. You can buy something for 3. The changeover is $1 million. You go, I'm comfortable that what I've got's worth that. What I can buy comfortably will be that, even though, and I'd rather sell first, so I know how much I've got. Sell. The market's not going up, so you're not worried about missing the market. Okay? So the logical approach in the market at the moment, and what most people are doing, is they're selling first. Some are renting for a while. Some of them are taking time to find the right thing, but they know, because the market's not going up, they've got a little bit of time to do it. When the market's going up at fast speed, like it has, people generally will buy first, because they're scared if they sell and they can't find something for 6 months, and the property that they sold was $2 million, and then they can't find the right thing for 6 months, and the one that they were going to buy is 3 is now 3.3. They've just lost 300,000 in the changeover. So in the current market at the moment, a lot of people aren't buying first because they're nervous about, well, if they buy first, will theirs be worth less when they sell? And that has happened in some cases. So most people in the current market selling, putting the money in the bank, looking around patiently and buying in within a 6-month period. The market's generally going to be very similar, or it might have dropped a little bit because things are going a little down slowly. So they're not rushed. And then they're coming to you for a rental property.
For rental, which is, but that's always been, because I know over the years, even when people have asked me about the market and they were concerned.
How is the rental market? Tell us about what's happening in rents. Has there been many of your landlords wanting to get out? Are rents going up substantially? I'm hearing in the media that rents have gone up a lot, but I don't know, is that really happening?
Look, look, I think they will be. And just to give you an idea, like with regards to our what's been happening, like winter is generally a slower period here in the Northern Beaches. So, for example, when I look at, our stats for the months that have gone by, end of April, we were getting 500 inquiries per week.
Wow.
And there was probably 10 properties to choose from, and we were getting maybe 50 applications on those 10 properties.
All right.
You come forward to sort of middle of July, and we're only getting 200 inquiries. There's still 15 properties available,
Okay.
or 10 properties available, but you're only getting 20 applications. So less inquiries, less people applying, same sort of properties available, because even in April, 10 properties for us, and we manage 1,300 properties, is very low. Like, we used to, going back maybe 4 or 5 years now, we would run 30 to 40 properties available at any given time, and then in winter that might blow out even more, but you were leasing 90% of them, on a weekend. But in winter it does slow down. We structure our lease agreements so they're not ending in this time of year. So if you can avoid May, June, July, just means that your property comes up at a time where there's more people looking, and it gives you the opportunity to have more choice when it comes to tenants, and you just have, it's almost like a different, level of people that are looking as well. It's sort of,
Market.
well, I think they're moving because they want to, as opposed to being desperate and having to move, sort of thing. So much the same as you said about, selling your home, and when you're doing it and you need to sell, as opposed to when you're doing it on your own terms. I find that tenancies are similar, and the fact that they take longer to make decisions sometimes, and it's funny because people say, "Oh, I've been looking for ages." I said, "Well, if you had been looking 2 weeks ago, you wouldn't have had this problem, So, but look, it is what it is. I think winter's always going to be a hard time for people, and it's cold and stuff.
People hibernate a little bit.
A little bit. They don't want to,
especially on the beaches.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. So that's my tip. And for tenants, the tip would be, if you're looking to move, or that you have to move, do it sooner rather than later. The closer it gets to summer and Christmas, the more competitive it gets,
And the rents
and the rents will go. Yeah, the rents will move accordingly, sort of thing. So
Interesting. And is there any new legislative changes in the rental space, in property management?
yeah, there's always a lot of talk at the moment, and New South Wales is probably a little bit behind Victoria and Queensland at the moment when it comes to legislation. Although we're ahead in certain parts, but one thing that's going to make it easier for tenants moving is the smart bonds. So the New South Wales government has introduced smart bonds, which at the moment, like, you're looking to move, you've got potentially 4 weeks tied up in a bond at where you are, and the age
4 weeks rent.
4 weeks rent is tied up in where you are, and then you're wanting to move out, but then you've got to come up with another 4 weeks for your new place, and then you can't get your bond back on the other place until you've moved out. So sometimes people potentially have, and especially call it an average rent at the moment is about $800 a week. Potentially people have got.
Well, that's for apartments, but for houses, the average rent's probably $2,000.
Exactly. So people may have $5,000 to $10,000 in bonds that is sort of just sitting idle, sort of thing. So part of the New South Wales government's scheme to help people is that they have set up a smart bond. So what it means is that a tenant can actually, there'll be a fee, which is $25, which just covers the admin for the government. But basically, the tenant can apply for a smart bond, which means that the government will give them the money for their new bond. So say you're moving to a place and the bond is $2,400, and you have $2,000 tied up in where you're moving out of. So the government will give you the $2,400 that goes to the agent for your new property. It gets paid, and you've got a bond. And then when you move out, if you get that $2,000 back, you
pay it back.
Yeah, you sort of then pay. Well, what will happen is the government will get that $2,000, and then they'll invoice you for $400, and then all you've got to pay is the $400 for the bond. So your $2,000 that's there, you don't have to outlay another $2,400. The government gives you that. All you get is an invoice.
That seems pretty good. For the tenants?
Look, I think when it first came out, everyone was a bit up, be like, well, what happens? So
what happens if they don't get their money back?
And that's okay. So what will happen is, if you don't get your money back,
Let's say they lose 1,000 of their 2,000.
So if they lose 1,000, the government will only get 1,000 back.
Yep.
Then the tenant they'll
have to make up the difference.
Yeah, Revenue New South Wales will invoice the tenant for the 400 that they lent them plus the $1,000 that didn't come over. So they'll have a $1,400 Revenue New South Wales payment, and I think they'll have about 28 days to pay it. So
the government will cover it in the short term.
Yep.
And then it'll be recovered or paid out by the tenant within the.
The government will always carry it.
Yeah.
It'll just be up to the tenant to pay Revenue New South Wales.
Gotcha.
And then I guess, I don't know how it works. If you don't pay a fine, then they chase you for it or something like that. So from an agent's perspective and an owner's perspective,
it's secure.
The bond's secure. So, I think that will make it easier for people to move because, potentially when you're moving, as I said, you've got the 4 weeks tied up in your old place, 4 weeks tied up in your new place, then you've got to pay another 2 weeks rent. Potentially that's 10 weeks rent that people are outlaying.
So when a tenant does move in, they've got the 4 weeks bond for an unfurnished.
Yeah.
If it's furnished, we don't do
No,
matters.
it doesn't matter. One of the legislation changes many years ago
It used
was
to be
now
6 weeks.
It used to be, but now it's 4 weeks is your maximum.
Okay.
You don't have to take 4 weeks. Some of our landlords say, "Oh, look, it's a lot of money. Just take a 2-week bond." But 4 weeks is the maximum you can take. And again, if you've got landlord insurance, and you don't take the 4-week bond, you take less.
Most of your owners would be 4 weeks.
Oh, everyone takes 4 weeks.
Yeah,
generally.
you would.
But you don't. Sometimes we have we manage properties that family members are moving into. So,
Okay, so
the family says, "Oh, look, just get them to pay 2 weeks bond or get no bond or whatever it may be." So, situations change. Yeah. But the max is 4 weeks.
And then how much upfront rent do they normally pay?
So it's generally 2 weeks rent in advance. And again, I should watch what I
When I was a property manager back in 1988.
in another country.
It was in French's Forest. It was 4 weeks up front plus the bond.
Yeah.
Did that change?
Oh, look, I think it used to be back
You
in
were
the day.
at school.
But it's 2 weeks, but it's just your first 2 weeks rent. So, again, I've got to get out of using that advance because that's one of the things that
2 weeks rent.
does pull everyone up. That advance is a terminology that crept into our industry, but it doesn't really make sense. It's just 2 weeks rent.
Yeah, the first 2 weeks rent.
Yeah. And these days it just depends because a lot of people get paid monthly. So a lot of people like to pay their bills monthly.
Yes.
So, they can pay calendar month rent, which takes them from, say, the 15th of this month.
The 15th.
To the 15th of the next month sort of thing. So, they're paying the bond, the outlay. And then, you also, and this is what people don't think of a lot, is that, when you're moving, removalist, cleaners, carpet cleaners. So there is big expenses on the tenants when they're moving.
Moving is not easy.
No, yep. And I think that's the thing now with the legislation is that they're trying to avoid people, moving or having to move out of properties because that one of the part of the legislation that changed last year was the no grounds termination. You can only have prescribed reasons to give a tenant notice to move out sort of thing. So look, it's little things like that. I guess the next one after the smart bond, and should come in about September. I think in August they're going to trial it out in the west sort of thing, Parramatta and areas like that, and then the rest of the state should get it in September. So great news for our tenants. And the other legislation that I can see that a lot of our tenants are being surveyed at the moment around energy efficiency. So that's going to become a big one as well. So
does that mean landlords have to change their
being able to heat your home efficiently as a tenant and being able to cool your home efficiently.
What's that?
We won't speculate because obviously it's not in, but you have to be able to have the ability to cool a room in summer to a certain degree, and whether that means that ceiling fans may become a prerequisite, air conditioning, and heating the same, whether there's air conditioning or facilities to heat. It's sort of, and then as I said, those sort of things are already.
That's going to be an extra cost to landlords to get things in place.
Extra cost and
higher rent potentially.
It's I don't know, like again and we've discussed this before in here that all these legislations that, are designed to, sort of protect, our tenants sometimes can, make it be also detrimental as well. So, but look, I used to say years ago, people used to say to me, "Oh, hasn't got air conditioning." I said, "No, not our climate. We don't need air conditioning. It's never probably over the last 5, maybe 10 years, it's almost become a prerequisite air conditioning. I said when landlords are saying to me, "Oh, what can I do to increase, my property being more attractive to people?" Air conditioning, it's or ceiling fans. At the moment are very popular as well, but air conditioning, ceiling fans. So
when you grew up, did you have any of that? I remember the little cottage in Sawley Road, Regis Forest. My mum's still there. God bless her. I remember on those hot nights, I'd have a wet cloth over my head. There was no ceiling fan. There was certainly no aircon. But when I go there now, she's got aircon in the living.
Yeah, look, I think and even our landlords, I would say at least 50% of our properties would have air conditioning. And you see now, even new apartments, years ago, they never installed the air conditioning. Now it's almost like everywhere you build a granny flat these days. The building companies, air conditioning is standard.
That's good.
It's a standard inclusion. And like I said, it used to be built-in robes, and but now it's air conditioning, ceiling fans, anything that helps with and also get into the energy efficiency homes that can have solar panels and things like that. They're looking at things like that, and there's a lot of surveying and stuff going on. So look, I think they're trying to ease the cost of living for tenants and stuff as well. So which isn't a bad thing, So
great. Anything else in that space?
No, look, I think we discussed the market. I think it's going to continue to be sort of competitive coming into summer and whatnot. So. If you're out there looking for a property at the moment, our tenants, and you got to move, don't be waiting for that 90-day notice to expire. I'd be sort of looking now and at least keeping your options open. That's, advice. Because getting closer to Christmas, it's going to get, more competitive and whatnot. So, but at any time, if anyone has any questions about sort of whether it's a landlord looking for advice on renting your home, or a tenant looking for advice on finding a new home, we do have our early bird listings that go on for all our tenants, so you can be included in part of that, and
it's a good thing.
Get the jump on, or the masses that sort of come out later on, sort of thing. So that's something that we do to try and assist people as well. It makes our job easy as well.
Yeah, wonderful. And if you are a buyer and a seller as well, and you just need advice on how to go about buying in this market, whether to buy now, whether to wait, and also as a seller, how to prepare your property properly to maximize the price, how to market it to the best effect, and how to negotiate, and how to work with an agent to negotiate the highest possible price. We're happy to provide all that information as well for anyone that needs it. Look us up at Doyle Spillane. We're happy to help, here to serve, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Awesome, Matty.
Great.